Let's get started. So we're going to talk about newsletters that work, delivering value, and staying top of mind. So this is the second class in my series to help you stay top of mind with your clients. And we'll be doing everything kind of based around like 36 touches and staying in front of clients, staying top of mind, building that relationship once a month going forward throughout the end of the year. So last month was all about the foundation. And this month we're going to be specifically, like I said, speaking about newsletters. All right. So with that, I'm Amy Stack. I am your regional tech trainer for the Mid-American region. I've been with KW a little over 8 years. I am a realtor, I'm an investor, and I'm a labs advisor. And then outside of work, I'm also a wife, a dog mom, and an auntie. So there's a little bit about me. And today, this is our goal for class. The goal around newsletters is to learn an effective way to consistently stay in front of people, and your audience, and provide them with valuable content while establishing yourself as the go-to resource on your market and building trust with your sphere of influence. So I would love to hear from you. Either put something in the chat or you can raise your hand or come off mute. Why don't we put in the chat, yes or no? Do you currently have a newsletter? Yes or no? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Let's start with that. I want to see who's in the room and where we are. Okay, it looks like a mix. No, no, no. Yes, a team newsletter. Okay, Brenda, so does your team send that out for you or do you get input into that? Oh, Lucinda said the same thing. So it looks like quite a mix. Got a lot of no's, handful of yeses, and then some team ones. Okay. So for those of you that say you're on a team, I'm looking at the chat over here, there's a few of you. Let us know in the chat if you have any input on it or the team just does it for you and you don't have to think about it. I'd love to hear how that's working for you. Okay, so we're going to cover a bunch of stuff today. So for those of you that are brand new to newsletters, we'll go over everything from the beginning. And for those of you that have been doing them, I purposely put some pro tips in here to help you kind of take them to the next level and maybe make a little bit more efficient use of your time and content to your clients to get some more return on investment. If you've been in any of my other classes, you've probably heard this stat before, but about 75% of business in real estate is actually lost due to a lack of follow-up. Have you heard that before? Can you put yes or no in the chat? Is that a newest stat to you? Did you know that your business is lost because of lack of follow-up? I'm seeing thumbs ups and yeses. Okay, so that's not a new concept. Wonderful. Well, we want to get around that because 70 to 80% of people actually say that they would use their agent again, but only about 18% do. And that's because right over here, like I just said, there's not a great follow-up system. So in my opinion, the newsletter is a great way to build in follow-up that is providing value to people. And it's not just, do you know somebody looking to buy or sell, right? And it's giving you a reason to reach out to them that doesn't necessarily, a lot of people tell me it feels icky. They don't know what to say. They don't want to just constantly ask for business. So this is a nice way to get around that and still touch them and provide some value and stay at the top of their mind for anything real estate related. So like I said, newsletters are an effective way to build your brand and strong relationships by delivering value to people, which will encourage them to know and like you. Because some people send newsletters to people they do know already, and some people are sending it to unmet leads as well. So depending on who your audience is, your content will change a little bit as well. But the idea is that the relationships will lead to future business by either building new clients or getting referrals from your current ones. So I mentioned that I'm going to provide some resources in the chat. A lot of the content today, most of it, is actually coming from that first book that you're seeing in there, the Red Newsletters Playbook. So I am going to put a link, whoops, in the chat. This is something you can actually get from Command, and it gets updated every now and then, periodically. So if you go to Command, you'll always be able to get the most recent one. And what you'll do for that is actually go to connect at the top of command, and then you can just search the word playbook or newsletter, and you'll see this little red guy pop up. I have downloaded it in today's current version. So if you scan the QR code or click the link I just put in the chat, that will take you to the playbook. So I'm going to just update the chat because I'm going to put a new link in there. Newsletter. All right. By giving me a thumbs up or a thumbs down emoji in the chat, will you guys let me know? Thumbs up, did you know that this existed in command or playbooks in general? And thumbs down, did you not know that before? Oh, I got lots of no's, thumbs up, okay. Ooh, okay. If you guys need to see how to get that later, remind me at the end of class and I'll pull up command and show you that. But really, in command, all the way at the top, there's a button that says connect. You'll just click connect and then type in search playbook and you'll get a ton of different playbooks. This one is obviously specifically for newsletters, but there's open house, there's AI, there's social media, there's all kinds of different playbooks in there that will have step-by-step guides for you from people that are using it at a high level in their own business. All right, so you'll see there's a second piece in here. That is the resource book. That is not going to be something you'll find in command. I built this out. So I'm going to drop that in the chat now. And this is something that is going to have some of those pro tips and kind of like a workbook style where if you in the future want to print out and take notes or something like that, you can absolutely do that. You can pull it up on your screen and follow along as well. So all the content from the class today is going to be coming from one of these two places, but I just wanted to provide you with that. All right, moving on. Who's heard of TCPA? Go ahead and raise your hand if you've heard of TCPA or can spam. Who has heard of those two things? No hands are up. Oh, I see some yeses in the chat. Okay. All right. These are important things to know. Okay. So TCPA is probably not as relevant for today's conversation since we're not really going to be talking about calling people, but this is just a reminder to make sure that you do have permission to reach out to anybody that you are contacting about business, whether it's on the phone or email. The TCPA is about calling and texting more specifically. And then today, since we'll be talking about emails a lot, can spam is also important. So you do need to make sure that you get the opt-in, meaning people are saying, yes, please add me to that newsletter. And then you just want to make sure to follow the guidelines here. Both the TCPA and can spam guidelines can also be found in that connect section in command. So if you're not 100% sure of what they are, you can just search for TCPA or scan this QR code. Or you can search for can spam or scan this QR code, and all the details are right inside command for you to help you stay compliant and make sure you're not getting any fines because they can get pretty hefty and we don't want you or your market center to get in trouble. So just make sure you follow those simple rules. Any questions on that before we move forward? I'm watching the chat, not seeing anything. Okay. So today what we're going to do is go over 5 steps. I've broken it down for you to success with your newsletters. So our steps here are going to be determine your who and how. Who's it going to? How are you sending it out? Design and plan your newsletter. Optimize your results. Consider additional lead gen strategies. So once we have a newsletter in place, how do we take it to the next level to get some more leads around it? And then assign the work, whether it's you doing it, maybe you have an admin or a VA, or you're on a team and there's somebody that's doing it. It's important to know who is responsible for what. So with step 1, as I said, we're going to be talking about that who and how. So for our who, these are some popular sections of a database that people will send their newsletters to. Most common, people say they're just going to send it to their whole database. That's what I see a lot. Then after that, I have a lot of people say, okay, well, I want to send it specifically to a zip code or a neighborhood. I'm going to do some geo farming and make sure it's in that specific like outlined area of the map. Now, a lot of times this will fall into your database as well. It could be people that are not in your database, though, if you pull a list from somewhere and work on it that way. Another very common one I see is referral partners. So that would be more referral partners that are not database related. So vendors that you work with, your allied partners, or other agents. I know a handful of agents that focus on this a lot, where they want to build relationships with other agents in other areas so that they can work with their clients that are moving into the Chicagoland area or Central Illinois, wherever you might be located. They're partnering with agents outside of that area so that when business comes, when those other agents' clients are moving into the primary agent's area, they're the agent they think of right away. They've already got that relationship, and they tend to have different content in that newsletter for referral partners versus what they're going to send to their database or a farm. All right, I am going to show you this samples button. This is straight from the playbook. So that red playbook, if you saved it, the first link I gave you, there are a ton of samples in here of different content you can put in your newsletters. I don't want to dig too much into this today because you do have access to this, but if you're really at a loss for like, what the heck am I putting in here? There's a lot of options in here, and you'll see that at the top it says this is it for an email newsletter and it's targeted at a database. This one's targeted at those referral partners we were just talking about. So there's several options in here. We even have print newsletters. So that gets more into the how. But I want you to be aware that we have all those samples in here. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. That's in that red playbook that I shared with you. Let me make this guy full screen again. Everybody see my screen okay still? I don't see anybody saying no. Okay, lovely. All right. So our next piece that we want to focus on is a pro tip for you. Again, I know I've talked about this in previous classes, so if it's not new to you, sorry, bear with us. If it is, feel free to scan that QR code and it will give you this guide right here that's on the screen. But this is a pro tip I have for you is, again, we're talking about who. So who are we sending this newsletter to? And if we are doing it via email, how can we make it easier on ourselves to find them in Command or whatever database you're using to send it to them quickly and more easily? And that's by using tags. So you can see the first suggestion under tags is targeted marketing. So using a tag to identify a market group of who you're talking to is going to be very helpful down the line when you go to actually send your newsletter. So I just wanted to mention that if you're not using tags already, this is a great way to use them and reason to implement them into your database. So if you guys are using tags, I would love for you to put in the chat, what's one of the favorite things that you use tags for? How are you using them in your business today? You can even put like what an example of a tag is that you like to use. Let's see. Nobody's using tags. I know that's not true. Oh, newsletter, group to categorize. How you know the client. That's a good one, Brenda. DTD2, yep. Keeping track of buyers and sellers, yes. Mets and not Mets. These are all great reasons to use tags. I love the examples here. We still got a couple more coming. Awesome. Neighborhoods. Yeah, that could be good for geofarming too. Homeowner, their area, their father, their mother, etc. Oh, so if they're a father or a mother, maybe you want to say Happy Father's Day or Mother's Day to them. Their area, where they live, where they're looking. Awesome examples. Client events, that's a good one too. Hobbies and interests, absolutely. These could all be things, depending on how in-depth you want to go with newsletters. Maybe you end up breaking up your newsletters into different categories based on who's in your database. Jake just put hobbies and interest as an option for tags. So if you have a lot of people that like to garden in your database, maybe you do a gardening newsletter. And if you have a lot of people that are into like outdoor sports, and they are maybe not as much into the gardening, but those are your two main hobbies and interests of your clients, maybe you break it up and do two different newsletters a month because you're going to be talking to two different audiences. Same thing with talking to your database versus referral agents. They're two different audiences. So if you have those tagged out separately, that will help you down the line when it comes to actually send those newsletters out. Thanks for all the suggestions, guys. All right. So I wanted you to think about who your who was. Who are we talking to? So once you have that identified, then you want to think about your how. Now, I showed in that little samples guide there that the samples were for email and print. I think the most people that I work with are doing email newsletters. There are people doing print ones at a high level, but I'm going to focus on these pros for an email one. I know there are a lot of people that have not done newsletters yet on this call. And I do recommend if you are starting out to start with that email because they are a lower cost. I love that they're environmentally friendly. It's a little bit easier to scale a electronic email versus a print one. It's easier to update content and do it more last minute than if you're printing something out. And then it has a little bit of an easier reach because you don't have to focus on how much you can pay for to send out or hand deliver or whatever that looks like. So this is in that playbook, this little chart. But I'd love to hear from you on the call. Are you looking to do print or email? Go ahead and put in the chat. Are you wanting to do a print or an email newsletter? Email, 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 email. I'm not surprised. Okay. And if you are maybe thinking of doing print down the line, that's great too. Kim said both. Print out for some of your seniors. That's a great thing to think about. And when you're of your who, seniors might not be checking their email as much. They like those, a tangible object. Maybe they want to write notes or share it with a friend, and they're just more familiar with print versus email. So that's a great idea. And Brenda said both neighborhood print. Oh, print for the neighborhood and email to everybody else. That's a great way to kind of segment your database. And then Tiffany made a great point. Email is easy to delete. You're right. So by printing it's a little bit more in their face. They've got to look at it before they throw it out if they're going to throw it out. All right. So I just wanted to talk through that a little bit with everybody. And then the next part of the how is how often is your newsletter going to be delivered? So consistency is crucial to keeping your audience engaged. There's been a lot of studies, and they're determining that about 60% of customers actually wanted to receive email newsletters. However, the number one reason why consumers unsubscribe from emails is because they're receiving them too often. So it's kind of like not a win-win. You just have to choose what you want to do. So you want to choose a cadence that's going to allow you to put out a quality product and make sure that it's valuable and timely. You don't want to send one out the first week of the month and then wait until the last week of the next month to send it out. You want to maybe identify a week in the month and send it that same week every month. Now, the longer you're doing newsletters, you may decide you want to do them more frequently. So maybe you want to send one out the first and the third week of the month. I know people that send them out weekly, but they didn't start doing it weekly. So you just want to make sure that you're picking something that you can keep up with and then grow it from there and make sure that you're okay with and ready for people to opt out. That's fine. It's better to send it and have them opt out than to never have sent it at all. Because even if 100, let's say you send the email to the newsletter to 100 people and 6 people opt out, that means 94 people didn't. So they're going to keep getting your newsletter and your name is going to stay at the top of their mind every single month. So what we've learned about this is that there is no right answer, just like I said, right? It's what's right for you and your business. So things to think about if you're new to newsletters, or even if you're not and you're just trying to figure out how to make it work better for you, think about how much time you have to dedicate to planning and creating the content, the amount of value you want and have to share. So let's say you have 10 different things you want to share regularly. That's kind of a lot to go into one newsletter. So maybe that means you have enough content to put into 2 different newsletters. So think about that as you're deciding how often you want to send it. And then of course the audience you selected. So that's all about our who and our how. Before we go any further, I want to pause and see if we have any questions about your who and how before we go on to our next step. Oh, I see in the chat, Tiffany, you asked a great question. If they opt out from the newsletter, will they be only opted out from newsletters or all marketing communication? So if we're talking about the command system, it depends on what they choose. When they choose to unsubscribe, they will have the option to unsubscribe just from this one type of communication or from all communication. And command tracks all of that for you, so you will have insights in the system on who's unsubscribed from what, and what's going on with their subscription status, basically. Good question. I didn't see any other ones pop up, so I'm going to keep moving forward. Our next section here, step 2, was design and plan. So some people, this is their favorite part, and some people, this is their least favorite part. But we'll go over lots of tips and tricks for you. So the success of your newsletter ultimately depends on the visual quality of your design and the value provided in the content. So that means not only do you need to have content that's relevant to people, but you need it to look good. So I know I mentioned earlier that one of the things we'll talk about is who's doing what. So if you're not great at doing like the graphic design piece of this, that might be a good thing to leverage out or partner with somebody on. But we've got actually 6 bullet points we're going to go through in here as well. So number 1 you can see is eye-catching subject line. And it says for electronic. However, if you have a printed newsletter, you want a nice headline on that as well. And then above the fold graphics. Can you put in the chat, what does above the fold mean? When you hear that, what do you think that means? Above the fold graphics. Ooh, no idea. First thing they see before scrolling. That's a good description. Cover, seen before scrolling. Yeah, you guys are right. Okay, so on a physical page, a newspaper or a newsletter, above the fold means, think about when you have a newspaper, it's folded in half, right? So above the fold is everything that's on that first page before you have to unfold it to see the next piece. So how that translates to electronic emails and newsletters communication, that means what do you see on your screen when you open that email before you have to scroll down? So anything that you want, like your hook, basically, what is going to pull them into that communication, you want above the fold. You don't want to have a bunch of little things that might be fun and cool, but aren't enough to get them to keep scrolling above the fold, because they'll never see what's below it then. So you just want to make sure you're putting your high value content right at the top. Put that hook in there to grab them. The next piece is an engaging title. And the title could refer to your subject line or an actual title of your newsletter. So you want to make sure that it's something that is relatable. And if you can, include the problem you're solving or the information you're providing. So I've got a couple examples on here. Instead of doing just Amy's newsletter, because that doesn't say much about what it is at all, right? Try something like Amy's Real Estate Insider. So now they know it's about the real estate market. Maybe they're like, oh, that's Amy Stack. That's not Amy Doe. Maybe they know 20 Amy's. There's also, you could just make it something simple. If we're doing those local geo targeting, use a zip code. News you can use in your zip code. Try something like that. The next piece on here is clear and bright graphics. You want to make sure that your graphics can represent the section and tell a story. So you want to make sure that they make sense. If you're doing some sort of client event with dogs, don't have a picture of a grocery store, right? That doesn't make sense. This is very similar to things you'll see on social media as well. So just make sure that everything kind of goes hand in hand. The graphic tells the story of the section of that part of your newsletter, if you're doing a graphic there. Then we want to make sure that we have an easy to read layout, so you don't want it to be too cluttered. You want a call to action. Can anybody put in the chat, do you know what MOFR means? MOFIR? MOFR? Have you heard that term before? So we want to, I'm going to keep talking while you guys are writing that out, but a call to action. You want to make sure that your audience is prompted to do something. What do you want them to do after they're done reading? You want to have a mofer there, and I see in the chat, make offer for immediate response. That's right, Lori. Thanks for dropping that in there. Make offer for immediate response. So usually your mofer and your call to action, they can be used interchangeably. It's just a different way to think about call to action. A lot of times people say, oh, I have a call to action. It says, call me now and has my phone number. But what's the incentive for your client or, unmet that's receiving your newsletter? Why would they actually want to reach out to you? I used an example earlier of events. So if you have an event, have a registration button, right? That's a little bit more exciting than call me for more information. Maybe your content is about how there is a lot of home equity today, and your mofer could be, fill out this form, call me, email, whatever the action is, but to find out how much money is hidden in your home. That's a lot different of a message than call me today, send me an email. So make sure you have a good call to action or mofer in your newsletter. And then number 6, of course, you want to make sure you have your contact information so it's always easy for them to get a hold of you. So even if they're pulling up your email in the past or they've found an old newsletter laying around in print that it's got your contact information on there, they can easily get a hold of you. All right. So tips and tricks. I'm going to change my screen a bit for a second here. Let's see. In your resource book, so the second page I sent you, or the second link I sent you, I'm going to pull this over here. Page 2 in that resource book has subject line tips and tricks. So you can read through all of those. What I do want to point out is this line here where it says sendcheckit.com. This is a website that I use, and I use this on the Mid-American newsletters that I send out to your tech trainers every month to share with you. But this will actually grade your subject line. So it will give you tips and tricks on what to change to get more opens just based on your subject. So that's a pro tip I've got for you. And then down at the bottom of that page is high open rate subject lines. So these are subject lines from agents that have gotten home high open rates based on in their business. So these are things that have worked for other agents. So those tips are in there for you as well. But like I said, I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm going to put that link to that subject line grader right in the chat for you. And I just wanted to make sure that you had quick access to that resource guide to see those subject line pointers. So you'll have those available to you. Any questions about those subject line tips and tricks? Not seeing anything in the chat? Okay. Then the next thing we're going to talk about is create buckets. This is still for planning your content. And this is going to be very similar if you guys already are using social media for your business for lead gen and to touch your clients. If you already have buckets for social media, you can use the same ones in your newsletter. So again, I'm going to go back to that guidebook. So you can see pages 3 through 8. I've actually broken down several pieces of content in there with what you can do. So in this case, this person has 4 buckets. They have a listing bucket, a market update bucket. You can use a personal or a team bucket, and then a community, what's going on in the community. So the following pages break down specific content ideas for each of those buckets. So in this example, the person that used these 4 buckets, this is actually Mary Cheatham King's buckets. She sends a newsletter each week. So she does a listing email one week, a market update, so on and so forth. However, you could do 4 buckets in one newsletter and have smaller sections in there. So that's an option as well, and just send it once a month. But you can see here's different ways to present the listing. Same thing, we've talked about this on social media before, but social media and newsletters, the same idea is that you don't want to just say, hey, look, I sold this thing. Hey, look, I got another paycheck. You want to actually tell a story and have people relate to you about that listing and maybe invoke a sense of connection. So we can talk about lifestyle shoots, your 4 favorite things in a listing, a virtual open house, talk about virtual staging, connect with them, share something that worked for your client that could probably work for somebody else too. So again, that resource book has 15 tips in there for you. That next bucket was market update buckets. So we've got story-based info and numbers-based info. So you can see there's different types of people and they absorb information differently. So you want to kind of change that up so you're hitting different sects of your database and your clients and how their brains work. So this page has different ideas on how you can share content specifically around market updates that will hit those different demographics in your market and how they absorb the data. The next bucket was team or personal. So if you're on a team and you want to share more information about your team, you can share this about anybody on there. If you're a solo agent like me, then you just relate this to you and how it works in your world and your life. Like, who am I? So I opened this class with a little bit of information about me to help you get to know me a little better. What is it you want to convey in the bucket? So that's why there's this note section here. You can print this out later and you can kind of take some notes in there to help yourself get a better idea of how you want to use this part of the newsletter to connect with your audience and your database. And then what's different about you? What do you do versus what other brokers do? How do you stand out? So this is really your value prop section. And then you can talk about different ways to share your story. You share your story in different ways, I guess. So here are different examples of things you can do that talk about you. So like today, if you want to take a screenshot of your class, you can use that either on social media or in a newsletter to talk about how you are developing your business and how you are working on something to bring value to your clients by coming up with content that's going to be relevant to them that they can use in their daily life. Or if you're targeting a specific area, maybe you'll bring local events to them. But yeah, you can share a little bit about you, let them get to know you. So even if it's an unmet, by the time they need something real estate related, they feel like they already know you. So it's easier for them to reach out to you. So letting them get to know you is a great piece of content to put in your newsletters. I also have a little section in here about testimonials as a little pro tip. All right, so, whoops, I didn't mean to get out of that just yet. The last bucket was community. So I mentioned a couple of these already, but really focusing on how you can bring some value to your database is by providing them with information of things that are going on in their area. And this is a lot of stuff that you can grab from local news junctures, from Facebook, like maybe your town has a Facebook page that they talk about what's going on in town. Maybe they've got a chamber of commerce that has a website that has all sorts of events and information. So if you can kind of curate that content for your community, these are different ways that you can present it and some different ideas. So one of the things we do as a region is provide a monthly newsletter with a value touch. And the one we just did, it was June's newsletter, was all about where to go for 4th of July fireworks in your area. So that would be something that's like falls into that happening around town bucket or community news bucket. I have a lot of agents that go and interview new businesses or do a video interview with an established owner. And the businesses love this because it's giving them free publicity. And then you stick in their mind as a resource for real estate as well. And I've known agents that have gotten business from these owners, but also just because they've shared these videos or put it in their newsletter. And it just kind of triggered a conversation that turned into a relationship that turned into a transaction. So there are some tips for community buckets. And just remember, all of this is in your resource guide, so you can always refer back to this if you clicked that link. Any questions about buckets before I move forward? All right. What are some buckets that you think you might want to incorporate in your newsletters? Go ahead and put them in the chat. What are some different topics that you would like to focus on in your newsletters? Here's some more suggestions that came right out of that playbook, that red playbook. So we talked about community outreach already, but holiday related content. I'll just challenge you on anything holiday related to make sure you're actually adding some value to it. Don't just say, Merry Christmas, because think about all the different, especially retailers, restaurants, they're constantly sending emails about holidays and it's, a coupon or just Merry Christmas, and people's inboxes are just getting flooded with them. So if you do something holiday related, one, my suggestion is to not send it on the holiday, and two, is to actually provide something that is helpful for them. So maybe like home decorating tips for the holidays or house cleaning tips for having a house full of guests over, something like that. Let's see. Donna put sheep, advertises vendors, upcoming events, and local charities. I love that. See, that's all about being local and providing content, showing that you're established in your market. Those are great ideas. Thanks for sharing, Donna. Okay, so continuing on with the concept of planning the content.
Maybe
Here, oh, I hear a
quick
question.
question.
Yeah.
So, with your buckets, if you were looking to up your content or your frequency, maybe doing newsletters a month,
Yeah.
would you focus like one newsletter on market update information and listings and other stuff more personal, or would you mix and match both of them?
Great question. If you are doing multiple newsletters in 1 month, I would do a theme for each newsletter each week, however you're breaking that down. And a little tip I have for you guys, even if you are starting with one newsletter that you're putting together, like I said, the Mid-American region is providing you with a newsletter every month. And you have the monthly neighborhood nurture smart plan that sends out once a month or twice a month, depending on which one you choose, to your clients. So you could have 3 weeks of content automatically. Well, I guess two automatically and one that you can customize for yourself. So if you aren't using any of the ones that are more automated, I do think it's a great idea to break up the content a little, and maybe you could go one of two ways. You could do one that's more real estate specific 1 week, and then your second week that's more of the fun stuff. Or you could break it up and do a little bit of fun and a little bit of real estate in each one, but have those different content blocks in there. So if you want to do like market stats in one and then around town in that same one, and then the other one you can talk about like your listings and share your client stories, and then share something more personal about you or like what's going on around town with new businesses. So I think that's going to depend on your audience a little bit. And I'm going to skip the slide. We can come back to it. Hang on. One of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit is A/B testing. So that's how you'll figure out what's really going to work for your audience. Did
Awesome.
that help, Jake?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, perfect. Good question. All right, so I think this is our last slide for planning the content. Best practices for planning your newsletter content. This is right out of that red playbook. But the idea of templating is fantastic. You don't want to have to recreate your design every single month or every single week. So make a template that you like and tweak it as you need. You don't have to recreate the wheel every single time. Make sure you're including click-through links. So if you're providing, I talked about events earlier. If you're offering an event to your clients, make sure that they have something to click on to either get more information or register. If you're providing stats, maybe link it to an article or something about whatever statistics you're talking about. Keep it short and sweet. So if you can say it in 5 words, don't take 20 to say it. It's a newsletter, right? It's the same thing with social media. People want to get to the point and move on to the next thing. So keep it short and sweet. Use different content elements. So don't have it just be text. Maybe include a video. We talked about having some graphics in there, pictures of you, of your clients, make it a little bit more relatable. So make sure there's a mix of the different things going on inside that newsletter. And then tools and checking your grammar, spelling, and you're making sure that it's at the reading level of your audience too. That's always important. If you are an English major and went to school for writing, you might naturally write a little higher level than what some of your database is. So make sure that it's accessible to them and relatable for them. And then, of course, just check for spelling errors. It happens, and that's okay. Nobody's perfect. I know a lot of people that have had some sort of mistake, whether it's they sent the wrong newsletter or there was a typo in the subject line, and people actually write back to them and they have conversations around it. So if it happens, it's not the end of the world, but you want to make sure that you're checking that as much as you can before you send it out. And if it does happen, and people are replying to you, just play with it a little bit. Make fun of it, like yourself, like play on that accident. Like, oh, my AI wasn't working that day, or something about a typo, or just be playful, and have the conversation with people. See where it leads. All right, so my next pro tip for you is time blocking. So again, in that resource book, on page 9, I've got tips for time blocking. So basically, this is for simple system for email consistency. Or if you're doing print, you probably want to edit this a little bit. Things will take a little bit of a different amount of time for print versus email. But when we're talking about email, you want to block about 30 minutes to select your content, about 2 hours to actually put it all together, an hour to either have somebody proofread it, but also make your edits and spell check and all of those pieces, and then 30 minutes to send yourself a test email and look at it again. So this is all in all, this is about 4 hours. Now, again, this person is sending these weekly, so if you're not sending it weekly, it might be a little bit less time investment, especially when you're talking about putting the content together, because obviously you don't then have content for 4 weeks of emails versus 1 week of email. But just have an idea of what it's going to take you and put those on your calendar. Because one of the biggest things that I hear about people that want to do newsletters is the time. And they'll time block maybe an hour to do it the day before they want to send it out. And inevitably something comes up, and then they don't send it when they want to, and then they don't send it at all because it didn't go out when they wanted to send it out. So just make sure you're time blocking to work on this. And if you're starting out, time block longer than you think it will take. And as you get used to it, go ahead and update your time blocks to make sense for how long it's actually taking you. The ones that I make for the region, I time block a whole day because I'm making 4 of them at one time. I'm doing extra pieces for it. I make a social media piece to go with it. I send an email, craft an email to send to my tech trainers. So it can take a lot of time depending on what's going in there, but it is, if you're doing it consistently with value and those MOFers, you will get business from it. All right. Number 3, optimize your results. So data is the new dollar. It's no good to send a newsletter if you don't know what's going on with it. Are people opening it? Are they clicking on it? Are they replying to you? Are they sharing it? What's going on? Right? Data is king. So make sure you're paying attention to it. Again, right out of that red playbook, it has different information here on what you should be expecting from print or email. We'll focus on email. I was going to ask you what you think an open rate is, but it says it right here. So it's the number of people that open the email. And then your click-through rate is how many people actually clicked on the links. So remember, we talked about having not only images and text, but have things like videos or links or things that'll take them outside of the newsletter as well. So that's the click-through rate. So the click-through could be them clicking on an article you linked in. It could be them clicking on a video. It could be them clicking on your website, but that means they clicked on something inside the body of that email. Now, obviously, you won't have open and click-through rates on print media, so that's why we have some different stats over here for your printed newsletters. Now, inside Command, you can see all of those email stats right in the report section. Most email platforms, so if you're using a third-party platform, will have those analytics for you as well. And we touched on just a little bit earlier A/B testing. So in Jake's example, he's thinking about expanding from a once-a-month newsletter to a twice-a-month newsletter. And what content do we put in there? Do we do all real estate in one and all fun in the other, or do we kind of mix it up? So that's where A/B testing comes into play. If you guys want to go ahead and put in the chat, what does A/B testing mean to you? What does A/B testing mean to you? I hear the keyboards going. I see the wheels spinning. Oh, and I see I missed a question in the chat here. Where do I find the provided newsletter? Oh, so yes, inside Smart Plans, inside Command, there are lots of pieces like the monthly neighborhood newsletter, but also if you look for MAR, M-A-R, Mid-American Region, you will start to see the newsletters we've put together in there for you. All right, Eileen, thank you. Eileen said for A/B testing, try A, then tweak with B and monitor the results. That's a very good, concise way to put it, Eileen. Some people will do A/B testing at the same time. So maybe they'll select half of their audience to receive A and half of it to receive B and see which one performs better. That's honestly the best way to do it. Some people will do it every other newsletter and send the entire audience A and then tweak something and send the entire audience B later. But the key with A/B testing is to not change too much at one time. And again, this is the same rule for social media, for running ads, anything like that. You don't want to change 5 things at once because if it does perform better or terribly, you don't know which of those 5 things caused that to happen. So you want to just A/B test a little bit at a time. But here's some suggestions of things you can try. Spending time on your subject line, being strategic with your timing. So maybe you want to change what time of day or what time of the month things are going out, using more or less links, making sure your newsletter is mobile friendly. I don't know that that's really A/B testing, but that is something you want to make sure you're doing because I don't know about you. Most of the time I'm checking my stuff on my phone versus an actual computer. So that's something I wanted to ask you guys too, to think about this is when you are checking emails, are you doing it on a phone or a tablet or a computer more frequently? If you are putting it on a phone, if you're checking on a phone or tablet, can you put A in the chat? And if you're checking on a computer, can you put B in the chat? If you check your email on the phone or a tablet, put A. If you check it on the computer, put B. See a couple of B's, an equal. Ooh, we're pretty even spread across the board here. See some more rolling in. I see a lot of us check both. Now think about your clients. Where are they checking it, right? And even if half of your audience is checking on a phone and half is checking on a computer, you want to make sure that the content they're seeing on a phone is quality and it's not getting cut off. It's easy to read. So you want to check for mobile friendliness as part of your send test. Okay. And then, of course, having your sender name be recognizable. So instead of saying, so my brand is the Stack strategy, but when my emails send out, they send from Amy Stack, not the Stack strategy. And then we talked about segmenting your audience already, but if you want to do some A/B testing with who to send what content to, that's a great way, a great piece to A/B test. I'm going to go back to our resource book. And page 10 has tips for winning with email. So what to look for to track your success. So take a look at that. And it just tells you what are things you can look at for open rates and change and what's working well and what's not. So if your open rates are going down, you want to make sure you're looking at that subject line and playing with that. If your click rates are high, that means you're providing good content. All right. Then we have consider additional lead gen strategies. So once we have our newsletter up and running and we've got a good flow, how do we use it to generate more content? One, we want to make sure everybody that's relevant should be on it in our database. We want to make sure that we're sending to referral partners. Now, again, I want to caution you that if you're sending it to referral partners, that might end up being a different newsletter. They might want different content. Give them suggestions on what's working in your business things you've had success with that might work for them, and maybe they'll remember you and be like, oh, that was a great idea, or identify with you and say, oh, I do that for my clients too. Ruben would be a great person to partner with because he does the same thing I do and he treats his clients the same way I treat mine. And then market your newsletter. So this is a big thing that I see a lot of people miss. They put their people on their newsletter that they're talking to, but they don't actively seek to add people to it. So bring it up at networking meetings, share it on social media, showcase it as much as you can. Make sure you're getting the opportunity to join your newsletter in front of as many people as you can. And here are some more lead gen strategies that, again, are straight out of that playbook. So you can add a landing page to your website. You can have a dedicated spot for archives, so keep your old newsletters on your website. Make sure you're adding a link to join or to receive your newsletter at the bottom of your email signature. Have maybe a Google form to sign up to get your newsletter. You can bring print copies to open houses or local businesses, post on social media, and just make sure you're talking about it with people. Is there anything you think we missed that it would be a great way to expand your newsletter audience? Go ahead and put that in the chat. What else could we be doing to get more people to opt into our newsletter? Let me know what you think. I'll give you a hint. There's a new one on the screen right now in your resource book. Oh, Donna said, I'm trying to do an intro video, have done a few, still tweaking. Oh, I love that. Having an intro video and you could say in the video to subscribe to your newsletter. That's a great idea. I've seen a lot of people do giveaways or host a community event and collect data that way. And Donna, this is a little bit of what you just said. Screen record, screenshot one of your emails and post it to social media. You were doing an intro video, but this is another way to do some sort of video around that. And even have an accountability partner. Make it a little competition with one of your friends or somebody on your team and have a little prize between the two of you. Whoever gets the most new email addresses wins. The other one pays for dinner or something when you go out. Or drinks on them. My last pro tip on here for you is permission-based marketing. So they must opt in, but you want to make sure that you're giving them the no while giving you the yes. Can you guys put in the chat yes or no? Have you heard of permission-based marketing before? Permission-based marketing. Is that a new concept for you? Never heard of it. Okay, 1-4 and one has not heard of it. Okay, where'd everybody else go? Have you heard of that term before? Never heard of it. Oh, okay. All right, well, I'm glad to introduce this concept to you. Looks like there's lots of no's. So that means you want to get their permission to market to them. So that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning with the TCPA and the can spam. We want to make sure that we have their permission. And a tip I have for you is by ask them a question that lets them say no, but gives you the yes. People like to say no. That is their go-to response, is to say no to things. So instead of saying, do you want to sign up for my newsletter? And they're like, no. And you're like, oh man, ask them, would you be opposed to receiving my monthly newsletter about real estate stats? And they would say, no, I'm not opposed to that, which gives them the no and you the yes. So that's my pro tip for you on permission-based marketing. Okay, our last step is to assign the work, and we'll go through this one a little quicker because I think you guys probably have a good concept of this already. But again, right out of the playbook, there's pros and cons of doing it yourself or assigning it to somebody else. And I think the biggest one here is cost, right? Cost and time. So the biggest pro by leveraging it out is time off your plate. And what could be construed as a con would be a cost to it. However, if it's generating income, then is it really costing you in the end? So just make sure that you're controlling the budget and the time spent on the tasks. And when you leverage it to someone else to do it, you're tracking those costs and still time blocking to review before sending. Now, if you're on a team, sometimes there's somebody on the team who's responsible for the newsletter. If you're an individual agent, you have the option to do it yourself, to hire an admin or a VA or a third-party company to do it for you. So you've got, everybody has options, whether they want to do it themselves or leverage out. But the best way to be consistent in your audience member's life is to have valuable information delivered consistently, turning you into their local economist of choice. So just as a little recap, keep the good stuff above the fold, which in an email means before they scroll. Don't be too wordy, so keep it short. If you can say it in 2 lines, don't use 4. Make sure you're using pictures. I'd actually update this to include video. And then always cite your sources. So if you're pulling information from somewhere else, make sure to give that somewhere else credit. Do you guys feel like we met our objective today? I got a thumbs up from Jake. All right, cool, cool. Did you feel like you learned an effective way to consistently stay in front of your audience and provide them with valuable content? I got a thumbs up from Ruben. Wonderful. And Lawrence, I'm seeing, oh, and claps. Okay, great. Then I would love to hear, come off mute, put in the chat, what's something you learned today? What was an aha moment for you? Or what's something you want to implement in your business within the month to send out a newsletter? Time to share. This is the group collaboration part of the class. Lori said the playbook, the red one, yeah. That those are available. It's a great tool. You don't have to remember everything. It's all there ready for you to refer back to. Donna said, increase emails with the question of, would you be opposed to receiving? Ah, yes. The proper division of the 4 buckets. Oh, okay. Subject line grader. Yes, Heather, that's a great one. That's one of my favorite tools. And Ruben said he's going to go through both books before he sends another newsletter. Awesome. Well, oh my gosh, we have 1 minute left. Next month's content or class is actually going to be on those plug and play newsletters. So if you want to rewatch today's class or last month's class, when this one's done, we will put it on social media or on YouTube. So you can go to visit my YouTube channel. But also check out the MAR Tech Hub. So we have a tech hub, and when those new ready to use plug and play value touch emails are available, there'll be a training tutorial right here on that MAR Tech Hub. So feel free to save that. There's lots of resources on there for you. And next month, we'll actually be talking all about those plug and play emails. So I'll go through the process of how you can find them, how you can use them, and different ways you can take advantage of them outside of just emailing them out. We have an office that's doing a really great job of actually putting stuff on social media about it to collect more emails to get their database. So like this one we just did with the fireworks, they posted online and said, hey, I have the list of this year's hot fireworks spots. Shoot me an email or DM me with your information to add you to my newsletter, and I'll send that over to you. And agents were increasing their database that way. All right, any questions before we hop off? I know it's 12 o'clock, so I understand if you've got to go, but I would be happy to answer questions.
Hey, Amy.